Okay, so this is an overview of the tools that are for the Youth Career Pathway 2018 grantees. And so what I want to do is I just want to show you that with all of these tools, we have for this one in particular, we have the a partner guide. Okay, and so when I go to, there's different ways you can get to this. We have a short URL, but I just want to show you how you can always access this information. So you go to the partner guide, and then this one is Youth Career Pathways PY 2018. So you click on that, and there is a direct link to the tools for you to go directly to those tools in production. It's not the only way to get there. It's one way to get there. And then we have the full list of resources and instructions. You don't really have to worry about restricted resources. We have all of our past training videos and materials are available here, updates, and then as you have success stories, we have a link here for you to easily access that information to update or to add success stories in for your customers. Okay, I just want to go to the full list of resources real quick. One of the things, we've had a variety of presentations and sets of instructions, and if you need to see the overview, then hold on, I hear some background noise. I'm just go ahead and mute that one. Okay, so yeah, so we have a variety of presentations here. Just as an overview of how the systems work together, you can take a look at the different types of tools that are available. So we have some things for getting started, which all of our we're pretty deep into the program now, so everybody's set up, but I can show you how to access information. So if you need to update the information, you can do that. We have what we call the online suitability application. Actually, it's kind of an older term now. We use it called the intake form. We have dashboards and reports, different case notes that are available, and this goes through and says, who does what. So we would do like the provider, staff, and which system is used. Is it done in Illinois WorkNet or is it done in IWDS? Okay. So that's there's an overview document. You're already at the partner. You already have access. You already have your training programs entered in there. If you need to edit or update your training program information, there are instructions to do so here. We have application and suitability page instructions, or intake form instructions for partners. Those are, we'll take a look at that in a moment. Now, one of the things why I'm spending so much time in this particular section is because with this particular program, we did not do public pages out there with a link to the application. And so what we did was instead provide instructions on how to get to the online intake form or application. Okay. Anyway, so that information is available. It's in a set of instructions that you would give to your customer. New thing. Sorry about that. Need to make sure that I thought it opened up in a new window and it didn't. So that's right there. And then with this program, I don't know if Tammy, I'm not sure how many.
I'm on, Natasha.
Oh, Tara,
I
too.
think Timmy's on, too.
Yeah. How many, because I'm getting it mixed up with the 2019, are people, what's the current situation with updating stuff in IWDS versus, do we still have back and forth, like some people doing it and using it as a, or do we end up giving most people access to IWDS?
Most of the agencies have access, but some of them still are working with an LWIA directly. So so we have a mixed bag, actually.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
some of the ones that are, if they're a 2008 and 2009 recipient, they have access because of the 2009 grant. You know what I mean? Into the system.
Okay. So anyway, you can look through the listing of resources that are available in the partner guide. I'm going to go into our test environment, but normally I would just click on this link to go into the tools. And once you are in the tools, you'll see that there is a dashboard. And the way the dashboards are set up is that yellow typically means an action is needed, and then we have these little information bubbles where you can look to find out more information. If it's in the red, it just means that, you know, it needs action. It's been out there for 5 days or more, and we usually provide next steps with the links to instructions, because we want to try to provide guidance where you need it, when you need it, and then access to instructions to help take care of whatever action needs to be completed. So this is all information about the customer's application or intake form. With this particular program, once they have submitted the application, it goes directly to IWDS. And then it's going to kind of sit there for a little bit. It's going to be, what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and review the information and complete the review. And if the person is interested in being in the program, then you're going to mark them as enrolling them into the program. If they are not going to be in the program, you just mark them as not suitable or decline to participate, whichever makes sense for that situation. And so at this point, they are all what we call an inquirent, because in IWDS, whenever you submit the information to IWDS, before they certified the application, then it's an inquirent status. So they should all fall within this area. So you know that if they're an inquirent status, something needs to happen. And so what that means is that these people right here don't have their application certified in IWDS. So you would want to follow up with whoever your contact is at the AWEA office, or whoever has access, you know, use your contact point for certifying people in IWDS, and then, you know, contact them and make sure that you have, you know, they have the information they need. They may just need another piece, an eligibility document or something like that. So once they're an applicant, it means that they have a certified application in IWDS, but they don't have any services yet. And so we want to go ahead and, you know, take the next steps to make sure that they have services and they're a registrant. Then you see we have the completed status. With the next area, with the dashboard, they are going to, we're asking you to review their information every 30 days, and we just call it a progress update. And we're asking you to review the information and just to say, yes, this information is current. And once you do that, then all your people will go to the green. So, so once you see, you know, I would recommend that you just look at your dashboard daily and just to see, you know, where the action is that needs to take place. and because it's just easier to do it, you know, a little bit at a time than sometimes trying to do it all at one time, depending on the number of what your caseload is. The same thing with case notes. We ask that you have a case note every 30 days, just to update like on the progress, on communication. So we have an area so you can see if a case note hasn't been submitted within the past 30 days. And if it has, then they're in the green. You're going to use IWDS to enter the actual services. And so what this area of the dashboard is, it talks about synced services with IWDS. And so I don't remember if I mentioned it before, but once I talked about how you're an applicant, once you have services, you're a registrant. So that part of the dashboard talks about the services that have been entered into IWDS for registrants and exiters. So you have an overview of, you know, who has their individualized service strategy, which would be really their first service or one of their first services that you would enter. And then, you know, academic learning services, work-based learning services. As you enter measurable skills gains in IWDS, they'll populate in this area as well. When you have an industry recognized credential, it'll populate this area. And then as you add follow-up services. So when a person is, you're exiting a person, you need to have the follow-up services for those.
And I just want to make sure I say to this point too, Natasha, is that, well, not to Natasha, but for everybody, make sure your numbers are adding up. So like Natasha said, the individual service strategy is the first service. So if you have 30 people enrolled in your program, you should see the number 30 listed, and just making sure like all your numbers are accurate, because this is where we're pulling those reports from. And this is the information that we're pulling it from. So we really need this information to be as accurate as possible. And the numbers have to be consistent. So if you have 30 people entered in your program, we should see 30 work-based learning. We should see 30 measurable skill gains, stuff like that. And if you're seeing where your numbers are off, then that's when you reach out to us or anybody to, so that we can get it corrected or anything like that. But make sure your numbers are correct, because we're pulling the report. If we keep having the issue that we're having now as far as numbers are inconsistent in the system and people aren't updating IWDS with that or on the work, then we're going to have to go back to the paper copy of the Julio report. And I'm going to have to send that out, and it's just a lot more time consuming for everyone. So our goal is really for us to be able to pull information directly from the system, know that it's accurate, and then submit it to our management teams. Also, for everybody that's on the call, in IWDS, we sent out emails, we sent out several. We have to delete the service that is for pre-apprenticeship students. Delete that service if they are not exited from your program, and then enter in the occupational training service with the same date that you have for the pre-apprenticeship. But we have to have that done by the end of this week, like tomorrow, because it's just imperative. We've been working on that for like 2 or 3 weeks now, and we have to have that done as soon as possible. So email me afterwards if there's any issues, but we really have to get that done. Sorry. Okay, done.
That's good. And so like what Terry was saying is that, you know, if you, let's say if you had 30 people and, or say you have, you know, 15 people and 13 of them have their individualized service strategy, one of the reasons why we have this yellow line here for action needed or potentially action needed is so that you can easily access the list of people, the two little outliers that are like, well, you know, who doesn't have their information in IWDS for an ISS. So you can click on this link, and then each of these links gives you to a filtered list of customers. And then this is pretty self-explanatory too. You can see, you know, for IWDS, the outcomes, and these are for exiters. You can see, you know, based on what's in IWDS, who has earned industry recognized credential, who's enrolled in post-secondary training, has unsubsidized employment, measurable skill gain, and so forth. And so as those, as that information comes in, it'll populate each of these areas so you can get the list of people that have that information. Okay, so once I click on this link, I'm going to go ahead and go to this one. Just going to open a new tab here. And this is my filtered list of customers. Test. There we go. And with the filtered list of customers, you know, you can search, you can filter, you can export the list. One of the things that we mentioned we like to mention is that if you need help with a particular customer, something just doesn't seem right with their account, or you can't get them to sync, or you know, something happened, it's off, then we would ask that if you're sending the information in an email that you use the WorkNet ID, and then we don't have to worry about personally identifiable information being transmitted through, you know, via email. So and we can search for it, you can see it, it's better that way. We have their IWDS status, you know, so that's usually helpful. Early on, you know, that's recommended for enrollment. You might be more so past that part of it. You can see what their program name is, what they're in, and then if the placement status is like worksite placement status. So the links to information go directly to that information for that customer and what's available for this set of customers. So if you were on the last webinar, you know that our 2019 tools are built out more than this set of tools. So there is a difference, and that's you know, that's just the way it is for this particular setup. You're not seeing something wrong. That's the way it really is. And so you have your overall profile, where you can see, you click on the links to show and hide more information. There's a sync that happens every night, usually I guess about 2 a.m. You can see the last time it was synced. If you update something in IWDS, you can always click the sync with IWDS button and it'll do an individual sync. So you don't have to wait till 2 o'clock in the morning. You can do it on demand as an individual, or you know, as a group. All of them are updated about 2 a.m. You can have help your person with resetting their password or sending them messages. The information that we have in this application tab is the information that was completed online, and then it was submitted. Once they hit the submit button, it goes directly to IWDS, and the person becomes an inquirant. Then once the person is an inquirant, that we ask you to go through and review eligibility. And so if they say, you know, I'm homeless, or I receive free and reduced lunches, then you can go through and find the documentation source that's allowed, so you know what you need to have in order for them to be showing eligible for that particular barrier. We have an employment goals section. So again, this is more for like a conversation whenever you're talking to them as so I see, you know, this is what you want to do, you know, you want to go into professional technical management, you know, some type of service, you know, and how does that relate with the programs that are offered by your location. And then, oh, well, you know, this person's willing to stay in training for quite a while, and that's great because, you know, we have something that's up 36 weeks if that's one that you really want, or, you know, we have something that's pretty close to your house. It's within 5 miles of your house. It's for machining. It's only 3 weeks long. you know, and so you can have this overall conversation about the training program and just being on, these are the type of jobs, this is the type of stuff that's going to be required. And when you click on it, you can see a summary of all that information that you have in the that you have already entered about your training program. And then you can recommend them for enrollment. Okay. Then you can also see the non-recommended training programs. So if a person says, that you don't know why they weren't recommended for food service, oh, well, it must have been the way you answered the appearance question and you didn't indicate that that's the type of industry that you would be interested in going into. So then once they are recommended for enrollment, then you would go through and work with your the OES staff person that is going to work with them to certify their application. So you can start putting in the different types of partners that are contacts for this person, so you can see the list of them. You can schedule an appointment, so you can see the different types of the appointment information that's available. You can see what their status is in IWDS. So we have IWDS application status. If it's inquirent, then their application's not certified. If it's applicant, then they are certified. They have a certified IWDS application, but they don't have services. If they're a registrant, it means that they do have services in IWDS. You see the certification date, and any of the services that you provide can't be prior to the, I can't remember if it's certification date or contact date, but and then let's see, so then you have your exit reason and employment information that comes from IWDS. Now the employment information that comes from IWDS is not the IDES information that's auto-populated. It's the information that's entered by the career planner into IWDS. And that's because of a data sharing agreement aspect of it. We can only pull in the information that was entered by the career planner. We have the different goals, which means that you're going to identify the training program that they had selected. You have an overview of their information from their application or intake form. We have a link to Employment 101, so you can view some of their information that they've completed as far as like their career exploration, training program information. Their SMART plans is what they had wanted to do. That's all available in the Employment 101. And then you can also, again, see their other application information. And the idea is that we want to bring those pieces and parts of the information that they had submitted into the areas that you can use in order to, help identify and, find out what this person would like to go into, or if it's a good match for them, if they feel it's a good match for them. We also have an area for barriers, and we'll be moving away from the use of the word barriers, but that's what it's called right now. And so a lot of this populates, these higher level ones populate based on what they had entered into their application. And these other areas are like gathering a little bit more detail. And so that you can help, identify what type of supportive services that they're going to need to help them to be successful in the training program. And then we had the services section, okay? So if you are sending a request, okay, so the idea with with using Illinois WorkNet, it's your communication tool. And so everything's in one place that can be easily accessed by other staff that also have access to these customers, and also the transparency so that, you know, Commerce can look and see what kind of progress is going on with each of these people, as well as, you know, being able to pull reports, provide dashboards so you can see what's going on, just, you know, for visibility. And so some people, you know, they didn't have information from IWDS, but then also the customer definitely doesn't have access to IWDS. So when you think of Illinois WorkNet, you think of, you know, it's the piece that's kind of like the communication tool, so that I can give my customer, you know, put together a plan of different services for my customer so they can see what the plan is, and I can have it all laid out what the planned services are going to be. And then we have IWDS, which is the actuals. So Illinois WorkNet is more of the communication piece. IWDS is the reporting, actuals, federal reporting tool place. So this was one of our earlier attempts. And we have since enhanced this area, but this is what we had at the moment, where you can add a service. Okay, so we would just say, you know, work-related service. It's a WIOA. I'm going to put it under, I don't know, pre-apprenticeship. You can say this is planned. I have a start date, a due date, so many hours, and if I have any notes, I can put it here and then save. So I added this. You can see that I added the service. I don't have a provider listed with it. I have the start date, end date, but we don't have it started. And then there's no credential associated with it, and you can see the source is that it's there. It's a planned. It's not requested. We haven't asked IWDS to do anything. Once I say that this is started, then it's going to say that it is a service, since it's a WIOA service, must be entered through IWDS. And then once that information is entered into IWDS, my WorkNet will sync with IWDS to either pull in those services or sync, you know, to the existing services. And so what you're doing at this point in time is submitting a request for the LWIA staff person to enter the information into IWDS. So whenever I hit submit request, then what it's doing is it's putting together a list of actions that need to take place, like activities or services that need to be updated in IWDS or added to IWDS. And whoever is the LWIA staff person that's associated with this organization and identified as the person that's going to be entering the information, they will receive a notice. I think it's like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. That is a summary of all the request sent items. Okay, so, you know, at this point in time, you have the flexibility to update, add, do whatever. If you wanted to remove it, you could remove it. And whatever the status is for these requests sent is what will go out in the summary notification to the IWDS person. Okay. Once they have updated the information and it's been synced with IWDS, you can't do anything to this. I mean, you can't remove it. Once you do something to it, it's going to update and sync at 2 a.m. with whatever is in IWDS. Okay. So
I just want to say, if you have access to the IWDS system, and this is just So you can make sure what you're requesting is getting, like for people that have a backlog and it takes forever for their partner to do it, but you have access to the system and you can add the services or anything, I would go ahead and make sure that those services are added on your end if you can, if you have access to do that, just so you know that it's moving along and you're actually not waiting on someone else to hit a button for your client. And that way, you know, like I said, you just know that things are being handled. Because I do know there's a couple agencies where you guys are doing the best you can. You're submitting for the services, but for whatever reason, your partner is having a difficult time putting them in and putting them in timely too, because there's other things that you're trying to do with that client or updating that file. So that's just my, you know, if you have access, I would do it myself if I were you guys.
Okay, great. Okay, so in order for something to sync, okay, let's just say these two are the same thing, okay? In order for it to sync, it needs to have the same service type, the same service, and the same start date that is in IWDS, okay? So in this case, let's say that like I said, case management started on October 4th, but really, you know, for whatever, maybe I had a typo here, whatever the case may be, or whatever was communicated. But in IWDS, they said it started on September 27th. You know, so obviously you want it to be accurate, so that's first and foremost. But you'll notice that these two didn't sync. They have same case management, they have same type, but the start date didn't match. So it's telling me that it's like we don't see these two as the same thing. So if this information that was added in through IWDS is accurate, then you just leave it as is. If it's not, you know, you can talk to the career planner and, you know, let them know that this needs to be updated to October 4th. If it is, they'll match up. But in this case, we're going to make the assumption that this is accurate. This is not accurate. And since this is not in IWDS, I can just simply remove it. And I'm cleaning up extra, you know, requests that are out there that don't, you know, they may seem like duplicates or they're no longer planned, whatever the case may be. And then whenever you add in measurable skills gain into IWDS, they'll populate in this area. The same thing with the credentials. Once you add in credentials, they'll populate in this section as well. We did have some people, like early on, for some reason, the sync was pulling in any of the credentials that were entered into the application. Since then, you know, we fixed that so that it wasn't pulling in those types of credentials. And then we've also gone back and double checked, and there may have been a few of you that you had people early on where that was the case, but we went ahead and cleaned up those. So if their credential occurred prior to their certification date, we removed it out of the services credentials area. And then if you have any documents that you need to upload, like whether it's like a consent form or something like that, you can upload those documents. We just want to make sure that you're not including anything that has like a social security number or anything like that. We don't want you to include that kind of information. We have the area for the 30-day review, or that progress review that I was on the dashboard that I was talking about. And this will pop up here every 30 days. And really what the only thing we're really asking is to, just like as a reminder, do a quick scan, make sure everything is accurate. If the services aren't accurate, then, you know, don't mark it as current. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be a check to say, yep, we did it. You know, like really, we do want to be able to know if the information is accurate or not. And if it's not accurate, then, you know, we need to be able to work with you and take the next steps to figure out what do we need to do to make it accurate. Okay. The other part of that is to make sure that they have case notes every 30 days. When you add a case note, you know, you're going to select your task, the contact date, subject, you know, text, and then you can send it as a message. You can send it as a message and an email. So if I did something like that, then I could put my note in here. I can send it to the customer if I wanted. I could send it to, you know, different partners. And as I do this and I hit add case note, it'll go ahead and add the case note in, and it will tell me that it was sent as a message and an email. Okay. If I just wanted to add something as a case note without sending a message, I could do that as well. All of your case notes that you enter in through Illinois WorkNet will be synced with IWDS. And we've had requests in the past, like to say, well, you know, we need an edit button for case notes. And I feel your pain, because it would make things easy if we could just do the edit button. The problem is that, or not problem, but the situation is that what we have whenever we submit the case note into IWDS, you know, it's in IWDS, and we can't edit those case notes that are in IWDS. So we want to make sure that the information in Illinois WorkNet matches what is in IWDS. Now, if there comes, so if you know, maybe you, I don't know, typed in the wrong date, then all you would do is just submit another case note, say, you know, this is the correction. It was actually on this date, not on that date. But if there's a situation where, you know, you enter in a case note that was supposed to be for Natasha into Tara's case notes, you know, just let us know, and it'll take a programmer on our end to remove that case note, but we can definitely do that. And then we just need to work with IWDS to make sure that, you know, Natasha's case note is removed from Tara's file in IWDS as well. So that's the update on case notes. And then you have an overview of the different services and everything that's coming in from IWDS, and you can add it, filter, export. Same thing with the case notes. You can add a case note here, you can filter it, you can export it. The one point that I just wanted to make sure everybody knows is that we do have case notes, as you saw, like in some of these other areas along the top. It'd be like right here in this section. And if you add a case note like on the progress page or on the suitability page, just know that the case note tab is where you can get a summary of all the case notes wherever they were entered. And then case notes entered from IWDS would also populate this case note page. We have our general assessments summary page that's available. So you can see those. We have optimal resume. So as your customers are using optimal resume, then you'll be able to view their saved resumes, portfolios, interviewing practice, that type of thing, assessments. And then we have worksite placement. So on the worksite placement tab, you can get a summary of all the worksite placement entries for this particular person, as well as the payroll upload. So to add a worksite, you can either go to this little icon up here, or you can click add worksite. And you can filter. You can filter, well, your project, if you have multiple projects, you need to filter it, but if you don't, then all your listing will be right here. If you want to add an employer, you can do that. It'll walk you through the process of first adding employer information and then adding worksite information. If the worksite information and the employer information are the same, you just check a little box and it'll populate all that information for you. Then you'll be able to enter the job information, the number of openings that are for that group, and then as you add customers, you're going to indicate if they took a full-time position or a part-time position, and so you can see those counts. So for each of these, like if I did job information, it's going to go back and it's going to tell me what's entered there for that particular job. And then let me make sure it's filters here. And then if I click on the full-time positions, it's going to tell me the different people for the part-time, so I can see which customers are categorized for those types of positions for that work site. If I want to add a customer, I simply go to add customer, add that person, fill in the information, started, save it, and that person was added to the job. Can't remember, I think I just said full-time. Yeah, right there. So that's how you add a person or add a person to a work site. Add your work site, then add your person to the work site. As they are working, then you'll want to do the payroll uploads. So you'll need to filter down to the right organization. And then I want to add payroll. And then you put a start time frame and an ending time frame. And you can do a download payroll template, and you'll want to use this template. It has like job IDs. It has different IDs that are already embedded into the system, into this worksheet. So for each of these people, you can say the hours worked, and then update their hours worked. And then if you needed to make other changes, you can make other changes here, and then upload that into the system. This is an old one. You just upload the payroll template based on what you had saved. You can upload additional files and then submit it. And then it'll go to your payroll upload history. So you can see the information that was uploaded. And if there's any errors, it'll tell you what didn't work so that you can fix it. So this right here will give you a group level view of the payroll that was uploaded. But if you go back to the individual's account, you can say at an individual level, you can see all the different payrolls that were uploaded for that individual as well. Okay, so I see a comment. With worksite placement, we are only entering employer information if we are the employer of record, or is that changed? Tara?
You can still enter that information even if you're not the employer of record, and there's places for you to enter like the pay stubs and things like that. You still want to make sure that information is recorded in the system, because if you guys don't upload it, there's no way we would even have the information. So if we want to pull a report and say, let me see how successful Natasha's program is, or if there's any wage increase, we have to have a starting point or somewhere to gather that information. And so we should see that in there.
Good question. Any other questions? Never had a problem. Okay. Yeah.
And I see a question related to the problem is getting the payroll from the clients if they're not the employer of record. So my question would be, are these people doing, are they being paid by obviously another employer for this opportunity? Because if this is coming out of, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, go ahead. No, you're fine.
If it's being funded out of this grant and you're doing the paid work experience, you are the employer of record. And then so you would have that information, but you identify who you've placed those individuals with. So in a worksite placement, you identify the places you're placing them, but then you document their wages because you are the employer of record. Now, if there's somebody else that's the employer of record, and I understand that, if you're doing a worksite placement that's a match money and it's not coming out of the grant, Natasha, if they can still report that, it's just they may not be able to do the payroll download because they're not privy to that information.
Can't you get that with the release of information? That's why remember we sent out those examples of the release of information and things like that? Because then you can directly talk to the employers to get that from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I can see where that'd be difficult because, sharing wage information that the employer is paying for is pretty sensitive, I would say. Refuse to say it. Yeah, I could see where the employers would refuse to do that.
And maybe you get that information from the client and then you put a case note. This is why case noting is so important, though. You put that on February 10th, Tammy Stone reported that her wages were $10 an hour and she's working 23 hours per week. And then you have it documented, and then you have that information from the client. If that's the way to work around it. But I would encourage everyone to have a release of information with your clients. I mean, if because you do want to make sure you have that information, especially when Tammy is saying, you guys, if you are the employer of record, you really need to have that information on your clients.
Well, and if you're the employer of record, you're doing the payroll. So, I mean, that information you control. If it's a match and some other program, you need to do this if it's being paid for out of this program for sure. But if they're doing a worksite placement and it's being paid for out of, say, matching funds, Natasha, is there a way that they can record that? Because I can see where they wouldn't be able necessarily to get the information. And this is different. This is different than permanent employment. So permanent employment is when you've actually placed an individual with a permanent job, and then you need to get wage verification for them that they are placed and what the wages are. And you can get that through the employer, or you can get that through the customer. And then eventually we'll get that from IDEF down matches. But we don't require a payroll on that. We require documentation that they are employed.
I mean, they would just put it in there as, they could just put their their whatever it is, like on whatever worksite training or whatever the category is. Employer, worksite, position, full-time, part-time, whatever, and then the hourly wage. So I mean, if the employer's paying for everything, just put it in the unsubsidized section. And then, I mean, you could do the payroll upload with just leaving it, just putting in their general number of hours they worked that week. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, the clarification needs to be, is this like a paid work experience that's not being paid for out of grant funds? Or if this is permanent placement, because if it's permanent placement, then it's just a matter of verification of employment. If it's paid work experience and you are not the employer of record, then I can see where that would be difficult. I mean, an employer probably would not want to share that information, and I understand that, you know, that's probably something that they're not going to share. So how is that reported in the system?
Do we have the speakers active? Hello?
Is that question directed towards Tammy?
Actually, this is Tanisha Carter. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I can stop typing. At the initial time that we spoke, when this grant initiated, I explained to you that there was difficulties in getting information from the employer. I had the students all sign a release giving me authorization to get, you know, their payroll submitted to me via email or mail or however they wanted to do it, or by fax. And then they, in turn, you know, kind of flipped that on me and pushed it back on me and said, it's my responsibility to have the client give me that information. So then what you told me was, if we were the employer of record, updated to the worksite placement. But I also know that you guys want to cleanly and easily be able to access work information to show measurable service skills, see where the individual is. So I'm wondering, I wanted to know if there was any updates that you added that I can put in besides case note, because then that causes you in turn to have to look at case notes. Or do you want to just use the IWDS mechanism window with employer and just have me add it there so that you can track it that way? What I'm trying to do is just make sure that you're able to access the information as cleanly and as easily as possible.
Well, you do need to document it in IWDS. But my question to you is: this permanent placement that you're talking about?
In many of the cases, it's permanent placement, and then there's internships that they were paid internships provided by the employer. We didn't subsidize any payroll at all, but it's work experience that I had connected. Right. So I wanted, you know, you guys to know that they are working in the medical area, and I know that that's just another mechanism of tracking and just making sure that we're doing our due diligence as far as our students go. And I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any changes to either system to where you wanted me to add additional information besides the case notes and worksite placement if we're the employee of record and the IWDS work section there.
But have you added the wages and stuff in there? Or are you saying you can't add that in?
For certain individuals, I have added wages, but then I waited to confirm if there's been any changes before I make these final ones and add in all that information for you. I have added employers on the work tab in IWDS for the ones I have, but I want to make sure that everything is accurate so then when I can completely do it, that when you print out in a report that they're accurate, which is what you expressly wanted us to do at this point. So I don't want to create any undue additional work for anyone. So I want to make sure that I'm putting in everything accurately.
Yeah. So what's the question?
The question was initially, did we change the worksite placement entry of information? Because at one point in time, as long as we were the employer of record, that's when we entered the worksite placement information. If not, then we were supposed to just document case notes. But prior to us confirming that with Commerce, I was entering payroll information for students, including, you know, internships and things like that where they were getting paid. And so I have data in there for worksite placement, but we weren't the employer of record. So the issue is, I want to know, is there a problem with that being in there? Because it's in there permanently. I understand we can't remove it once it's entered. So has that changed?
The system hasn't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I guess we can speak about this offline because I'm taking time away from everyone else getting through this process. This is probably individualized to me, or maybe not. I mean, as far as entry, we just need to do case notes.
I would say enter all of them, and then you can note in there, this is a, you know, because I think you have about 14 or so that are working at a hospital, right? Those 2 hospitals?
Yeah, I have more. Right, I have more now.
Okay, so you have those. So enter in the information you have, whatever you have for your clients. Enter that in the system, and then I'll go in and we can look. And we can, once you enter it all in, we can go in and look next week. Just set up some time with us, and we can go in and look.
Okay.
But entering what you have now, that way we can say, because ultimately, I always tell people, Illinois WorkNet is your way to show that you're doing work with your clients. So whether I've gotten you an internship, a permanent placement, I want to document and cover myself and say, this is the work that I've done with this client. And your way is having that information and entering it in.
Okay, then I'll do that.
Right, and you can enter that through the services too, because you should have an internship service for that individual.
And I do. I have the internship services. There's a couple of internships, because one is the non-paying one, and then there's we're going to have another set of interns that are paid for us ultimately in the summer. Again, so there'll be a series.
They're being paid out of the grant.
Right. So there will be a series of internships for individuals. It can be upwards of 3 or 4.
Right. And those that are paid out of the grant, then you need to make sure you do a payroll upload for anyone that's paid out of the grant.
Correct. Okay, so alrighty, I understand now.
Okay. Are we all clear? Because it looks like there's another question.
Anybody else have a question that's on the phone? Just go ahead and just talk.
Because the other ones, I'm not sure, was it referring to like about the pay stub and everything? Is that, oh, here we go. If we know a client is working and we can't get information, we can provide the state with client's personal records. Okay, disregard. Okay. But for permanent placement, do we need to cover on what's required for permanent placement? I mean, as far as like verification or anything like that?
Is that one of the questions? I can't. My computer just did like a mandatory restart.
Hold on a second. I can't. It's 4. Okay. If we know a client is working, we can't get the information from the client employer. Is there a way you can provide the state with the client's personal information, have the state verify through their records that the client is indeed working and paying their taxes? So, I mean, to me, that's like that would be.
Who's that from?
Huh?
Who's that from?
TYLKOWSKI. It was. We can figure that out. I just didn't know if there was something that needed to be done when it came to. Is there anything we need to cover that's, since we had this conversation about worksite placement, about permanent placement? I mean, is there anything, are there certain requirements that they need for IWDS? Because we have like eligibility documentation for the, you know, things that they need to provide, or what did they have? Do we need anything special?
No, it's nothing special. It's all in the documentation.
Okay. All right.
And just noting that it's a permanent employment or, you know, something like that.
Okay.
But I really, for those that are having issues with getting information, can you guys email us? Because I know the employer may be an issue, but if you're working with the client and you're in constant contact with the client, I'm not understanding how we're not at least being able to get the information from the client.
Millie.
Huh?
All right. Well, if anybody, wait a minute. Here we go. No. Okay. Okay. So for any client, this looks like it was added. I don't. For any client that's working full time, there needs to be some kind of documentation from the employer, or can you get pay stubs or some kind of information of work from the client, right, Tara? So
Wherever there were, even if it's part-time, you still want to put that information in.
okay.
What was the second part?
I need some kind of, okay, you can get pay stubs or some kind of information of work. This is like for permanent employment. She says, yeah, no, that's right. Just making sure.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But if anybody, like I said, if you're literally having a huge block and like you have 20 students and you can't get information, please email me and Tammy on the same email and Natasha, because we got to figure that out. I mean, we can't just have it to where case managers are saying, oh, I can't get the information. I tried one avenue. Like, you have to express it to your kid. Like, I know, I mean, working with kids is just a task in itself, but it's so important for you to get that information. Either it's by them or by the employer. And if you guys are the grantee and you've brought in the employers, I'm not understanding why the employers wouldn't share that information too. Like if your agency is the one that set up the contracts and the MOU with the employers, which a lot of your agencies have, we got to either revisit the MOU or something like that to figure out why we're not able to get that wage data. Because at the end of the day, that's really important. That shows like, hey, I did my job, look, and they're successful. And when you have clients like Don's clients making $19, $20 an hour, if not more, you want to report that information. Or if you have a client that started off at $8.25 and because they stayed in the program and you guys have engaged with them, they actually went up to $14 an hour and you want to show that increase in wage, you want to have that information available. So if you don't document it, it never happens. So we have to know that that's happening. And it's a way for you to brag about your program. You guys are doing great work. It's just use Illinois WorkNet as a way for you to showcase that work with actual data.
Okay. I think we're pretty good. Are there any other questions as it relates to the tools or?
And I was going to say, if everybody can really look at the Julio report that we discussed, what was that, last Wednesday? And make sure your numbers are accurate. I am going to pull that report next week. So I want to give everybody up until next Wednesday to please update your training program numbers, making sure that those numbers are what's in your grant agreement, making sure all your clients have work-based learning in and all of those. Just make sure your numbers make sense. And we'll pull that report on Wednesday just to make sure what the system has and what you guys have is the same number. So I want to make sure we give everybody enough time. Also, like I said, again, the IWDS, making sure please take out that pre-apprenticeship service and put in the occupational training service with the same date. We got to have that stuff done by got to have that done by Friday, but have the Julio report and everything uploaded and your numbers okay by Wednesday so I can pull those reports and we can make sure everything's good to go.
All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, then thank you very much for joining us. And we will, I can't remember, I think we're scheduled for next Wednesday. So
thank you, Natasha. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.